part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Welcome back for this exciting conclusion of Atomman versus Superman. This is the part of the podcast where Tyler here talks to himself because we're going through the serials. Now, Chapter 11 is entitled Luthor's Strategy. And ironically, my dog tore up my notes on this one. And I apologize. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you realize, you get the gist of it. Luthor does something. Superman goes to save the day. He saves the day. Jimmy and Lois get in trouble. Superman goes to save them. Chapter ends. Cliffhanger next week. So sadly, we jump to Chapter 12. Atomman Strikes. This is the one where we actually find out that Luthor is Atomman. He gets revealed, and as he gets to the public, Perry tries to get the team on assignment to track down, to get proof, but they all know that Atomman is Luthor. And they try to write it up in the paper and prove it to everyone to bring down his ongoing corrupt television studio. And to really let people know So, it ends with Luthor basically being angered and that he's going to fire his death ray. Chapter 13, Atomman's Flying Saucer. He begins by using his ray to attack the Daily Planet. The offices are being heated up and the ray is then fired directly at Superman. We see damages to trucks, cars, and everything possible, as Superman then decides to fly up, use his X-ray vision, but it'd be a different vision, to see the reactor beam, to follow the beam to its source. The beam is visible. So Superman goes flying. And what happens is, he finds a flying saucer that Lex has that he's utilized, because Lex is still trying to fake the public that he is not Atomman. And I said Lex, and I apologize, it's Luthor. I get so used to saying them interchangeably to not repeat myself with the exact same words. And that's the end of Chapter 13. Chapter 14, Rocket of Vengeance. As the last one, when seeing the flying saucer is coming towards them. Clark and Lois are in a plane. Lois passes out. Clark then goes out the back of the plane and flies out, saves the plane as Superman. And we have some great animation. This I didn't touch on it earlier, but they start using a different angle of the animation where it's almost like Superman's flying towards you as the camera, it turns feet first, and then it matches the way he lands from the opposite reverse angle. So it's pretty neat. Superman smashes the flying saucer, saves the airplane, lands it, then turns back into Clark to wake up Lois. Luthor is continuing to attack the Daily Planet. And we find that he's building a spaceship. And he is the greatest scientist in the world, and that all of his projects will be beamed aboard that ship. So when he decides to destroy the Earth, if he chooses, because he has a machine that can make earthquakes and the tides change and everything he has will be safe in the spaceship. He launches the rocket into orbit and will teleport himself up there later using his atomic projector. We get reused footage of the locations as Superman arrives and they fire a missile at him. He catches the rocket and throws it back towards the entrance of the cave. Then Luthor fires a rocket at Metropolis. And Superman goes to it and is sitting on top of it as the rocket is flying towards Metropolis. Chapter 15. Superman saves the universe. The epic conclusion to Atomman versus Superman. A battle of wits or brawn? That's what I ask you, dear listeners. Where does this fall? Because Superman takes the bomb into the river, and we found there is synthetic kryptonite in it that weakens him. And that, meanwhile, back at the cave, Luthor is talking as he's preparing to leave, and we find that his thugs have brought in Lois. Luthor, I apologize, the thugs have Jimmy. Luthor used a coin that he had sent to Lois as a gift under a different name to bring her to him. Lois and Luthor get into an argument together. She calls that he's playing Noah's Ark, and he says that she will be the mother and the woman on a new Earth if he chooses to, and he reveals much of his plan to her. And Superman goes to the outside of the cave where police have him nearby. This is one of those scenes where you're just kind of like, okay, this is weird. But he says, follow me to the cave. And Superman walks to the opening of the cave with the two police officers. He goes in, tearing apart the lab. We have short waves of energy that are being fired from the cave, trying to defend itself. Luthor and Lois are beamed up. And Superman sees this through his vision. And Superman flies up, rescues Lois, blows up the space rocket, gets Luthor. Luthor goes to jail. It ends in Perry's office with Lois drawing on a paper that putting, this Superman look and drawing glasses on it. And Lois thanks Clark and is Superman, but we're not sure as we hit the end. It's really funny because the conclusion is not that exciting. It just feels like another episode that just throws on the end at the end of the episode. The way it ends each time feels different because it's left on a cliffhanger, and it doesn't end on a cliffhanger, but it just doesn't leave you satisfied. I don't know, maybe if I was a kid back then and I saw this, I'd be super excited, and I probably would be. But I don't know, it's a very sticky kind of feeling of how do I feel about these. In one hand, I respect it for what it was, the time, and what they were trying to do, the storytelling style. Because if you haven't heard yet, if you go back, this was 1950. If you go back, I did a review in July of Superman and the Mole Men, which was 1951, following year, because these serials came at the last end of the idea of a serial, where now we're just going to do features. And Superman and the Mole Men was pitched to Kirk Allen. He wanted too much money, so they hired George Reeves. And it feels weird, just in general. And I'm not going to go into the whole detail, but I wonder, had it been Kirk Allen, if it would have felt different. But it's interesting because 1950, 51, 52 is back-to-back Superman projects, from the serial to the Mole Men movie to the Adventures of Superman on TV. So that's where I'm going to leave it. It's been kind of fun just kind of going through these. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, or at least gotten more of an idea of what the serials are and how they work. And remember,
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.
remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our information right there. If you want to keep Krypton from exploding, join our $1 a month Patreon. That's right. For $1 a month, you'll get extra special content that you don't get on the main show, like movie commentaries and whatever else comes out of our mouths. So check it out, patreon.com/Krypton Report.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough Super Talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, the Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, Caped Wonder, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope Podcast.
Hey, we're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.